discovered. The incredible journey of a lonely rancher saving a beaten mother of 3 daughters. Jake stood on the windswept plains of Montana, his silhouette framed by the setting sun. The endless expanse of rolling hills mirrored the emptiness inside him, a reminder of the family he'd lost. As a rancher, he wore stoicism like armor, but on lonely nights, memories of laughter, a small hand in his, haunted him. Just as the golden leaves swirled around him, his heart yearned for connection, for something more than solitude. Fate had a way of surprising those who dared to hope. On a crisp autumn afternoon, he was riding the range when something caught his eye, a fragile figure beneath a canopy of blue sky. As he drew closer, the heart-wrenching image unfolded before him. Sarah, battered and weary, stood with her 3 daughters clinging to her, their eyes wide with fear. The bruises on Sarah's skin were like dark shadows telling a tale of abuse, one that struck a chord deep within Jake's core. He felt an instinctive pull, a need to protect. "Can I help?" he asked, his voice rough like gravel but laced with sincere concern. Sarah looked up, her eyes wells of despair and a flicker of hope ignited at the edges. She could hardly speak, yet her nod brought an avalanche of emotions crashing down around them. Jake took them in, letting the warmth of his home envelop them like a sacred embrace. As the days turned into weeks, Jake learned the challenges of life with Sarah and her daughters Emma, Lily, and Rose. Dinner became a shared ritual, with laughter breaking the silence of the ranch like music. With every bedtime story Jake read, the walls of his heart began to crumble. But just as hope flourished, doubts surfaced. The small-town whispers were relentless. The menfolk were skeptical, casting judgment on their unconventional family. "What will they think?" echoed in his mind. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Trouble brewed like a thunderstorm on the horizon when Sarah's ex-partner resurfaced. A specter of violence loomed on the outskirts of their newfound peace. Jake wrestled with doubt. Could he protect this fragile family? Fear seeped into their lives, tightening like a vice around his heart. Yet within the chaos, there was resilience, the laughter of the girls, the spark in Sarah's eyes, and the stillness of the night, illuminated by the flickering light from the ranch window. Jake found himself at a crossroads. Every moment filled with quiet hope and a lingering fear suggested that he must fight for this makeshift family. Would the bonds they had forged withstand the trials ahead? Could they truly build a life together amidst the storm that threatened to tear them apart? The shadows danced on the walls like ghosts, and deep down, Jake knew that whatever lay ahead, love was the strongest force he'd ever faced. The morning sun filtered through the shutters, casting strips of light across the kitchen table. Jake stood there, a fresh pot of coffee brewing, the aroma filling the air with a sense of promise. But an unsettling tension wrapped around him like the oppressive Montana heat. The girls were still asleep, but Sarah lay on the couch, the weight of her past heavy on her shoulders. Jake watched her. Her brow was furrowed in sleep, lips slightly parted as if she were dreaming of a happier time. He ached to erase her pain, to shelter her from the world that had been so unkind. Yet, in the quiet of those early moments, uncertainty gnawed at him. Could he be the man they needed? As Sarah stirred, he quickly turned his attention back to the coffee pot. "Morning," she whispered, her voice hoarse yet warm, a sound he had come to cherish. "Morning, Sarah." "Coffee's ready," he replied, pouring her a cup. The steam wreathed her face as she took the mug, and he could see, however briefly, a flicker of normalcy in her eyes. That as the days passed, Jake did his best to shield the family from prying eyes and judgmental whispers. He built a routine. Mornings were filled with breakfast and barn chores. The kids found joy skipping stones at the nearby creek, their laughter like music to Jake's ears. But every cheerful moment was tempered with the knowledge of what lurked outside their sanctuary. The tension escalated when Sarah's ex-partner made a presence again. He would stand at the edge of their property, a dark figure beneath the wide sky, watching. Jake felt a surge of protectiveness rush through his veins. The more he witnessed the fear in Sarah's eyes, the more resolute he became to face this new menace. Nights were worse. They were filled with an oppressive worry, the kind that seeped into his bones, and Jake often found himself working late into the night, fixing fences or tending to the cattle. Anything to work off the adrenaline point. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jake decided to confront the demon head-on. He would not allow Sarah or the girls to suffer in silence. He called Sarah outside. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady, but inside, he felt his heart pounding. "About what?" she asked, her brow knitted with concern. "About him. We can't let him dictate our lives anymore. I'm going to speak with him." Sarah's face paled, fear flickering in her eyes. "Jake, please don't. I don't want you to put yourself in danger. He's not someone to take lightly." Something in her tone struck him deeply. She had seen his darkness, felt its weight. "I can't stand by and watch you live in fear. Not anymore. What if he comes back and the girls are here?" she whispered, almost pleading. The thought of exposing her daughters to that violence was terrifying. Jake stepped closer, determination etched on his face. "I will keep you all safe. It's my promise." The air charged with unspoken fears and hopes, and for a moment, everything felt still. He reached for her hand, holding it steady between them. "You have to trust me, Sarah," he said softly, his thumb brushing her knuckles, grounding them in the weight of reality. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows around them, Sarah nodded, pulling in a shaky breath. "I want to believe. I'm scared." That fear hung in the air between them, a tangible thing, but there was also a spark of resolve. Together, they could face what was coming. But would love be enough to keep them together when the storm finally broke? Across the valley, shadows began to lengthen ominously, as Jake squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of what was to come. Facing the storm ahead would take all the courage he had, but for Sarah and her daughters, he would do anything. As night swept in, Jake knew they were on the cusp of something far greater, something that could change everything. He steadied himself against the unknown, his heart racing with a blend of defiance and hope. What would happen when he finally came face to face with the man who threatened their peace? Jake barely slept that night. The idea of facing Sarah's ex-partner filled him with a mix of dread and determination. He paced the dimly lit barn, the silence amplifying every creak of the wooden beams around him. Each scratch of dirt underfoot felt heavier than before, as if the land itself was aware of the impending confrontation. The first light of dawn brought a fresh resolve. He climbed into his truck, the engine rumbling to life beneath him, fueling him with urgency. He drove slowly, looking for signs, anything that could alert him of the man's presence. Every structure along the road appeared like a potential witness to their struggle. But as he approached the edge of their property, it was still and quiet, the world holding its breath. Then he spotted him. The figure was back, standing against the fence, arms crossed, his silhouette dark against the morning sky. Anger surged through Jake, heating his blood. It was as if that man had no care for the pain he had inflicted on Sarah, and the thought that he could ever come back made Jake's hands tighten around the steering wheel. Jake stepped out of the truck, his boots crunching on the gravel. He took a deep breath and fixed his gaze on the man. "What do you want?" he called out, voice steady, but his heart raced. "Just wanted to see how you're doing," the man replied, voice dripping with false ease. He took a step forward, eyes narrowing. "Heard you've taken in a family. Quite the hero you think you are." Jake swallowed the anger rising in his throat. "This isn't about me. It's about Sarah and the girls. You need to stay away from them." The man chuckled, a low, mocking sound. "Oh please, you think you can just claim them as yours? You have no idea what I'm capable of." The wind whipped through the yard, unsettling the calm that surrounded them. Jake squared his shoulders, courage bubbling in his chest. "I'm not afraid of you. You may have haunted their past, but I won't let you touch their future." The man's eyes flashed with a dangerous gleam. You don't know the demons I've fought. You think you can fight them for her? You're just a rancher playing house. In that moment, Jake realized the depth of his own resolve. It wasn't just about standing between Sarah and her past. It was about proving to her, to himself, and to the world that they could build something beautiful together despite the shadows. I'm not playing house, Jake stated firmly. I'm building a life, and I will protect it at all costs. What will you do if I don't back down? The man challenged, stepping closer, his presence filling the space between them like a storm cloud ready to burst. A mix of fear and determination swirled within Jake, stirring memories of his own past battles, his own demons. Then we'll face whatever it takes. Together. As if sensing the change in the air, the girls peeked through the doorway of the house. They watched, wide-eyed and uncertain, sensing the tension. Sarah emerged beside them, worry etched on her features. Seeing her, Jake felt a surge of love and commitment wash over him. Get inside. He called to the girls, keeping his gaze on the man before him. With their safety at stake, he felt a rush of adrenaline. The man's face twisted with mockery. You think you can shield them from me? They're just as much a target as you. Enough! Shouted Jake, stepping forward, defiance lighting up his chest. You'll not lay another hand on them. This is your only warning, stay away. With that, Jake turned to walk back towards the house. He knew he had made a stand, but his heart raced with the fear of what might have been left unsaid. The ground felt unstable beneath him, as if it awaited a shift he couldn't predict as he entered the house. Sarah's eyes met his with a blend of hope and fear. Jake, are you all right? He nodded, drawing in a deep breath. But beneath it, uncertainty tugged at his gut. I will be. But now we need to prepare. I don't think he'll take this lightly. Behind them, the door creaked, and they turned, feeling the weight of the storm still looming ominously above. Jake could barely imagine what the fallout of this confrontation would be. But one thing was clear, there was no avoiding the storm now. What would happen next, when the wind changed and the real fight began? The atmosphere inside the house had shifted from tense to suffocating. The walls seemed to close in as Jake felt the weight of Sarah's anxious gaze. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake, what if he comes back? What if he gets near the girls? Her concern ignited every protective instinct within him. He reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. I won't let him. We've got to be smart about this. We need a plan. The girls lingered at the kitchen door, their faces drawn and worried. Daddy, is that man gone? The youngest asked, her voice trembling. Jake knelt to her level, forcing a calm smile. Yes, sweetie. He has gone for now. But we need to stay inside and keep ourselves safe. Can you do that for me? She nodded, though the uncertainty lingered in her eyes. Sarah moved closer to the children, wrapping an arm around each of them. Why don't we bake some cookies? It'll keep your minds off things. But I want to help. The middle daughter protested, a spark of determination igniting in her. All right, let us all work together, Jake cut in, hoping to distract them all. He stood and grabbed the ingredients from the pantry. With flour covering the countertop and laughter echoing off the walls, it felt like a moment of respite. But another part of him remained restless. He glanced at the window, the view of the yard shadowed by dark clouds in the distance. The false sense of security of their playful kitchen scene clashed with the lingering threat outside that as they mixed sugar and butter. Jake's thoughts spiraled back to the confrontation. He replayed those moments in his head, haunted by the man's words. Was he really prepared to face whatever was coming? That evening, he and Sarah sat on the porch, the sunset painting the sky in fiery oranges and reds. Jake, you can't do this alone, Sarah said softly, breaking the silence. This is my life too. I want to fight, but I don't know how. He turned to her, eyes steady. We fight together. You've faced so much already. You have strength I can't even begin to understand. I need you by my side. The wind ruffled through the grass, carrying a distant sound. Sarah leaned closer, her voice trembling. What if he tries to take the girls? What if he thinks he can just come here and take them back? Jake took a deep breath, determination sharpening his mind. Then we'll call the police. We'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe. We cannot let fear dictate our lives. Just as he spoke, headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating their yard. His heart raced. Sarah, get the girls inside. Now. She bolted into action, ushering the kids away as Jake reached for a flashlight, his entire body tensing. The deep rumble of a truck engine echoed ominously in the night. Jake stepped off the porch, heart pounding. He had no room for doubt now. All thoughts of self-preservation faded in the face of what he had to protect. The truck came to a halt, and out stepped the man, face twisted in a predatory grin. Looks like we're gonna have a little chat after all. Jake felt his heart drop. How had he found them? What was the plan now? He felt the fury rise again, the determination sharper than before. This wasn't just a chapter in their story. This was the moment everything would change. I'm not afraid of you, Jake shouted, as the world around him faded. All that mattered was the resolve to protect what he loved. What would it take to show this man that he had crossed the line? Jake realized that it might not just end tonight. The confrontation had only begun. Jake planted his feet firm on the ground, adrenaline surging through his veins like wildfire. He could sense the girl's presence inside, small hands clinging to their mother-esque comforting embrace. But a fear wrapped around his heart, squeezing tighter with every beat. He wasn't just confronting a man. He was facing a nightmare that threatened to tear his family apart. The man outside chuckled, a sound that sent chills skimming across Jake's skin. You can try to protect them, Jake, he said, his voice dripping with malice. But you can't hide from the truth. You think this is over? I know who you are. Jake spat back, his voice louder now, filled with the anger he kept buried for too long. And you don't belong here. The words tasted bitter on his tongue, but he needed to stand tall not just for himself, but for the girls and Sarah. Belong? Oh, I think I do. Nothing is over until I say it is. The man's eyes glinted under the porch light, and Jake steeled himself for whatever was next in that moment. Jake's mind raced. He had a choice. To keep fighting or pull back, to keep this monster at bay or to risk it all by letting the man tread into their lives. Fear lurked at the edges, clawing at him. But there was something else, something fierce growing inside. A spark of courage. Get away from here, Jake warned, stepping closer, letting the light catch the glimmer of steel hidden within his flashlight. If you know what's best for you, you'll leave. And if you don't, I'll make sure you regret it. With an exaggerated sigh, the man crossed his arms, acting as though Jake's words were mere ants on his arm. You think you can scare me? I faced much worse than you. But Jake could see it in his eyes, a hint of uncertainty that fueled his own determination. Sarah peeked around the door frame, her eyes wide and filled with silent questions. She didn't say it, but he felt her need for reassurance. Just standing here filled him with a fierce love for her and their girls. They were all he cared about. The man took a step forward, and Jake felt his pulse quicken. You don't want to bring this to a fight. A dangerous undertone crept into his voice, his grin widening almost unnaturally as he eyed the house. What happens when the cops will take too long to arrive? Or worse, what if they don't come at all? Jake felt a wave of anger crash over him. He had to push back. I don't need to hide behind anyone. You came here to mess with my family, and I won't stand for it. The tension between them was palpable, a storm brewing waiting to unleash. Jake could feel every second stretching, but he also felt a deep-rooted confidence surge. He was ready to defend his family, whatever it took. Why don't we talk about it, then? The man said, tilting his head slightly, as if assessing Jake's resolve. A little chat could do wonders, don't you think? Jake narrowed his eyes, muscles tense and ready. His heart pounded in his chest, echoing the intensity of the moment. I think we're done talking. The challenge hung in the air, thick and dangerous. In that instant, Jake remembered the girls, their laughter, their sweet innocence. He couldn't let that be taken away. Suddenly, a movement caught his peripheral vision. His youngest daughter peeked out just enough to see her father's determined stance. Their eyes locked, and he took a steadying breath. The look in her eyes so trusting, so brave set him into motion that he wasn't about to let fear claim another inch of their lives. As he prepared to face the man head-on, he thought about the power of choice. This was no longer only about protection, but standing up for everything they believed in. What if tonight was the night that changed everything? And then, from behind him, he heard the soft voice of his daughter. "Daddy." "I'm scared." Jake knew the weight of that fear would only fuel his resolve. It was time to bring the fight to reclaim their peace. But would his courage be enough to confront the nightmare head-on? The moment had arrived at last. Jake's heart raced, thudding like a drum in the fragile silence of the night. The weight of his daughter's fear wrapped around him, squeezing tighter than the man's presence ever could. "Hold on, sweetheart," he whispered, the words barely making it past his clenched jaw. He had to be strong for her, for all of them. The man outside chuckled again, but this time there was a tremor beneath his facade, a flicker of confusion. "You think your bravado means anything? You're just a farmer playing a hero." "Maybe," Jake replied, his voice steady, no longer just a reaction to the man's taunts. Holding the flashlight close, it illuminated their faces, revealing Jake's hardness and the man's flickering doubt. "But I won't let you destroy my family. You don't scare me." Without waiting for a response, Jake took another step forward, closing the distance between them. He felt a swell of adrenaline surge through him, bracing for whatever might come next. He could see the edges of fear creeping into the man's smirk, and it sparked a fiercer resolve within Jake. "Do you even know what you're doing?" the man asked, eyes narrowing. "You think you're protecting them? What happens when you're not there? When you're too weak to stop me?" Jake met his gaze with defiance. "Then I'll die trying." His words hung heavy in the air, echoing the solemn promise he made to himself. This was bigger than him. This was about the safety of the ones he loved. Sarah emerged further from the shadows, her voice a soft but steady beacon in the dark. "Jake, don't stay back." "Sarah," he ordered, keeping his eyes fixed on the man. She hesitated, and in that brief moment he felt a rush of panic. But he couldn't afford to falter. "I've got this." The man stepped closer too, invading Jake's space with a sinister intensity. "Let me give you a lesson in fear," he hissed. Jake could smell the alcohol on his breath, a mix of desperation and bravado. But Jake turned the flashlight on him, the beam casting an unyielding light on the shadows of their encounter. "You've got nothing to teach me," he replied, spine straightening. "I know fear, I know pain, but you'll never control this family, not while I'm breathing." Before the man could respond, footsteps thundered across the gravel road. The powerful rumble of a police cruiser broke through the tension. The noise, familiar yet surreal, rumbled like low thunder in the night sky. Time seemed to freeze. The man's face twisted in anger and some other emotion that Jake couldn't pin down. Panic? Fear? "Guess your heroes won't be fast enough." The man spat, drawing back with a fierce intensity, ready to bolt. Jake's instincts screamed at him. He couldn't let this man escape. "No!" he shouted, lunging forward. His heart raced, feet pounding against the ground as he sprinted toward the man, determined to prevent his escape. Then everything erupted. Jake stumbled as the man shoved him aside, their momentum sending Jake crashing into the yard. Dizziness swept over him as he attempted to regain footing. But he could still see the man's wild eyes darting toward the darkness. When Jake heard it, a soft whimper coming from inside the house. Not from Sarah, not from their daughters. It was a different voice, one he hadn't recognized before. The sound stirred something fierce in him, a protective instinct stronger than ever. "Jake!" Sarah shouted, panic lacing her voice. Jake struggled to regain control, anger coursing through him. He had to keep fighting, had to shield not only what he knew, but confront the truth that was now creeping into his family's safe haven. Would he confront the shadows lurking in their lives? Would he be the barrier against all that threatened to destroy his family? As he prepared to chase, one question loomed large in his mind, a question that rattled in his heart. What truth was hiding beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? Jake's mind raced as he pushed himself off the ground. The man was slipping into the darkness, but the sound a whimper held him in place. It rose like a cry for help, pulling him toward the house. Sarah's fear fueled his own, but he knew they had to stay focused. "Wait here," he said to Sarah, though he could feel her uncertainty. She stepped slightly back, her silhouette disrupted only by the fading light of the flashlight. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever he might find. The door creaked as he slipped through, the quiet of the living room feeling alien now. Shadows danced on the walls as memories of laughter and warmth faded, replaced by the chill of uncertainty. The whimper echoed again, faint but urgent. He followed the sound, heart pounding against his chest in the quiet chaos of the house. He found himself drawn to the doorway leading to the basement. A sliver of light slipped under the door, illuminating a small, locked panel. He pushed down the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged within him. Who was hiding down there? Why were they in need? "Hold on," he shouted into the dark, hoping against hope that there was someone waiting to hear him. Someone who needed his strength. With a forceful shove, he knocked his shoulder against the door. It splintered slightly, and with one last effort, he threw his weight behind it. The door burst open, revealing a poorly lit stairwell leading down into the heart of the house. "Jake!" Sarah's voice broke through the air like glass shattering. She was terrified, but he had to keep pressing forward. He descended the stairs, each step echoing with foreboding. The air became cooler, thick with something unspeakable. As his flashlight beam swept across the concrete floor, there she was, a woman, huddled in the corner. Her clothes were tattered, and her eyes brimmed with fear. But when their eyes met, something shifted. "Who are you?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. She hesitated, swallowing hard. I'm lost." Something twisted deep inside him. "I'm Michael," she said, a slight tremor in her voice. Where are your daughters?" "They're safe," he assured her, though his heart still churned with worry. He couldn't shake the feeling that what she was about to say could unravel everything. "Please, you have to help me." He's coming back," she pleaded, tears spilling down her cheeks, adding to the layers of desperation that enveloped the basement. "I can't let him find me here. He's dangerous." The weight of her words crashed over him. This was not just a confrontation. It was a life that needed saving. The urgency of her plea struck him harder than any confrontation outside. He had to act, to protect his family and this woman who was fleeing an unseen danger. "Come with me," Jake said gently, inching closer, extending his hand towards her. "We need to get you out of here. You can stay with us until." He faltered, grappling with the implications of what his family was becoming part of. "Until?" she whispered, fear and hope intermingling in her gaze. "Until you're safe," he replied, offering a strength he hoped she could feel, even in this hopeless place. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the direction of the yard. Panic surged through him as he realized the man had not yet left. He glanced back toward the exit and then at the woman again, feeling the electric tension in the air. They were running out of time. "Now," he urged, "we have to move." As they rushed back up, chasing after safety, uncertainty followed close behind. What awaited them above? Would the world outside be as dangerous as the shadows lurking in the basement? The adrenaline clawed at his chest as he emerged into the living room. But before he could fully grasp the gravity of their escape, a shadow crossed his path. Who was standing there, waiting? A voice called out, but the identity remained hidden in the chaos of the moment. "Jake!" it shouted, a voice both familiar and feared. Jake paused, a chill settling over him. What now? Would they be able to face another truth that threatened to tear apart everything he held dear? Jake's heart raced as his mind whirled. The voice cut through the darkness like a knife, freezing him in his tracks. The familiarity clawed at him, each second dragging out like an eternity. "Jake, it's me." The voice grew more pronounced, revealing itself to be the unmistakable sound of his brother, Mark. Shadows danced across the living room as the two men stared at one another, the atmosphere thick with unspoken history. "Mark, what are you doing here?" Jake finally uttered, stepping protectively in front of Michael. Every instinct screamed for him to shield her from whatever was coming. "I came to see how you all were, but it looks like I arrived just in time for a little drama," Mark responded, his tone laced with sarcasm, though Jake could see the concern flicker in his brother's eyes. "Please, we don't have time for this." Jake held his ground. Michael shivered behind him, her fragile presence a stark contrast to the tension unfolding between them. The noise from outside grew louder, a rumble of footsteps, muffled shouts. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand. "We need to get out of here, Mark. There's someone dangerous out there." Mark's expression shifted, his demeanor visibly changing. "What do you mean, dangerous?" "Let us just say I've got a guest who's fleeing a nightmare," Jake replied sharply, urgency pushing him to take charge. He turned, gesturing for Michael to follow him. "Come on," he urged, his voice steady despite the chaos. But as they moved toward the door, Mark stepped in front of them. "Just hold up a second. You can't just drag someone out of here without knowing the whole story," Mark said, his voice rising. Jake felt a flash of anger. "Are you serious right now? This is not the time for questions." "There is no time." The sound of shattering glass and a scream echoed from outside, urging them back into action. Out of instinct, Jake pushed forward once more, ready to barrel through his brother if he had to. But Mark held his hand up, taking a step back that revealed a light glinting off something metal, his gun. "Jake, think about this. What if she's leading you into a trap?" Mark's eyes narrowed, assessing the situation as tensions rose. "She's a mother, Mark. Someone who needs help," Jake retorted, a mix of frustration and fear bubbling inside him. The question lingered heavily in the room. Could he trust her? "Let her prove it," Mark demanded, still blocking the doorway. Michael stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Promise I'm not a threat. I just need to get away from him." Jake's heart softened, glancing between Mark and Michael. His brother's face was set, preparing for a fight if it came down to it. "Jake, if we let her in, we have to make sure she's not hiding something. We can't be foolish," Mark insisted, but the tension in his voice revealed his inner struggle. "Please, I'm begging you," Michael implored, hope flickering in her eyes like a candle in the wind. Jake felt the weight of his brother's suspicion, yet each puff of Michael's breath echoed louder, thumping against his heart, reminding him of what mattered most. "Mark, we can't leave her here to face that man alone," Jake said firmly. "We're all in danger if we do." Before Mark could respond, another crash broke the silence, the sound of the front door being flung open. Stumbling footsteps and angry shouts echoed closer. Time froze. "We're out of time," Mark shouted as his eyes darted toward the entryway. "Move," Jake shouted. They rushed past Mark, determined to reach freedom. But as they crossed into the hall, a figure appeared at the threshold, casting a long shadow in the fading light. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The man stood there, a smirk on his face, eyes fixated on Michael. "There you are," he said, dark and chilling as the air around them thickened. Panic surged through Jake as he tightened his grip on Michael's hand, ready to face whatever this dark figure intended. "Get behind me." What had they awakened? Would they confront the danger head-on or run back into the dark chaos they had just escaped? Everything hung in the balance. As the man stepped closer, Jake's heart hammered in his chest. The air felt electric, thick with fear and uncertainty. The man stepped forward, his confidence radiating like a dark cloud. "You shouldn't be here, sweetheart," he said, his voice dangerously smooth. It dripped with disdain, a predator toying with his prey. "Stay away from her," Jake shouted, instinctively positioning himself closer to Michael, ready to fight with everything he had. Michael squeezed his hand, her eyes wide with terror. He could feel her trembling, her reliance on him a burden he didn't mind carrying. The man laughed softly, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Jake's spine. "You really think you can protect her? This isn't just a game, kid." He took another step forward, and Jake felt the gravity of the situation constrict around him. "Jake, we need to go," Michael whispered urgently, pulling at his arm. She was right. They couldn't stay here, not in the face of this danger. Jake nodded, his mind racing for an escape plan. Back off. Mark's voice rang out, suddenly fierce and unwavering as he drew his weapon, aiming it directly at the dark figure. You have 3 seconds to leave before I call the police. The man's smirk faltered for a moment, his eyes narrowing into slits. You think a gun will stop me? He retorted, stepping closer, unfazed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Then why don't you say who it is? Mark challenged, unyielding. But Jake could see the tension in his brother's shoulders. Mark wasn't just facing a man. He was facing the shadows of their past. Don't do this, just walk away, Michael pleaded, her voice cracking as she took a step forward, inching into the confrontation like a moth to a flame. Something deep within her yearned to confront her tormentor head-on. Michael, no, Jake barked, gripping her wrist tightly. The last thing he wanted was for her to slip through his fingers again. We'll figure it out together, I promise. But the man chuckled darkly, relishing the fear he instilled. Oh, isn't that adorable? You both think you can outrun your problems. In that moment, Jake's resolve solidified. He wouldn't let Michael face this alone. She had already borne too much weight. Mark, get her to safety now, he ordered, his voice honed with authority. Jake, no. I can handle this. Just move. Jake shot a glance at Mark, and the urgency resonated. They had no time for debate. Mark hesitated, but the determination in Jake's eyes told him all he needed to know. Okay, let us go, he shouted at Michael, guiding her toward the back exit. Her bewildered gaze lingered on Jake for a moment, full of unspoken worries. Jake faced the man, heart racing. You want her? You'll have to go through me first. Oh, I plan to, the man replied, a wicked smile spreading across his face. Just as he lunged forward, adrenaline surged through Jake. He was ready to fight, every muscle primed, the stakes higher than they had ever been. But as he braced himself, a loud crash resonated from the back door, the sound of splintering would announcing an imminent threat. Before he could react, footsteps rushed in from the entrance they had just exited through. An unexpected team of strangers charged into the room, a group of former friends, all ready to defend him. We're here to help, one of them yelled. Jake's mind raced. What had he just stumbled into? Would this unexpected alliance help push the darkness away or drag them deeper into it? As he faced this new twist in their potential salvation or doom, the outside world seemed to hold its breath, friction building to a breaking point. Would they stand together, united against the looming threat, or would it all unravel? Only time could tell. The chaos exploded like a firework, orchestrated, loud, and vibrant with raw emotion. Jake felt a rush as his old friends surged into the room, faces filled with determination and urgency. Their presence was like a lifeline thrown into a stormy sea. Hope surged through him, merging with a bubbling sense of camaraderie. You guys came, Jake breathed, gratitude flooding his voice despite the chaos. Let us do this, one of them shouted, wielding an old baseball bat with a fierce grip. Another, a familiar figure from his past, brandished a heavy flashlight, the beam slicing through the shadows. We've got your back. Always, came the reassuring voice of Sam, a friend who had grown alongside Jake in laughter and loss. It felt surreal they were here when it mattered most. The man, dark and unyielding, absorbed their arrival with disdain. You think these kids can save you? He scoffed, his facade cracking. That smirk of confidence began to fade in the face of Jake's reinforced allies. You're mistaken, Jake shouted, stepping forward, grounded in purpose. You've brought this storm upon yourself. The tension crackled in the air like electricity, blood pounding in Jake's ears. Each heart in the room swelled with a fierce commitment to protect, to fight, to stand tall against despair. The man swayed slightly, uncertainty flickering in the depths of his malevolent gaze. You think you can take me down? He challenged, voice dripping with bravado. You don't know who you're dealing with. No, Mark interjected, aiming his weapon steadily. But we are ready to face you. Together. The urgency of their resolve ignited a flame within Jake. He wasn't alone anymore. He had a purpose, a clarity that rang loud and true. Glancing at Michael, still fragile, yet now emboldened, he remembered the depths of her agony. They would rise from the ashes together. They had to. Without warning, the darkness lunged and chaos erupted. Jake felt his heart race as the man charged. But the friends were ready, a barrier of unity forged in friendship. Sam swung the bat with precision, colliding against the man's arm, forcing him to stumble back. The old fear was losing its grip. "Get the girls to safety," Jake yelled. He barely saw Mark and Michael move, guiding the girls out of the room. A sense of urgency intertwined with purpose as each of Jake's friends worked to keep him safe. But his heart ached for Sarah and the kids, his love stretching unbearably towards them. "Stay strong," he shouted, catching a glimpse of the girls huddled in the arms of their mother in the hallway. They were safe. They were free from this monster for now. With that reassurance, a rush of adrenaline ignited within him as he turned back to face the man closing in again. But the scene had shifted. The tide was changing, and Jake steeled himself, finding strength within the flicker of hope that built as they fought against the darkness. With a final burst of resolve, he lunged alongside his friends. Each swing of the bat echoed the score of past injustices that had haunted them all. "You don't own us," Jake shouted, frustration and anger empowering his every move. He felt everyone rally together, a wave crashing down upon the man, each voice a tribute to their collective strength. The man faltered, stumbling back, fear etched into his features. Realization dawned in that moment. Jake wasn't merely fighting for himself now. He was fighting for everyone who had known the weight of oppression. "Leave," Mark shouted again, forcing him to backpedal as the man's bravado shattered. Jake could see the panic start to rise in the intruder's eyes as the band of friends pressed forward. United. "This won't end here." He spat defiantly, retreating into the lingering shadows, vowing to return. The storm finally passed as silence fell. Jake's heart still raced, but the room was now filled with breathless relief. They had triumphed together in the warm embrace after the storm. Sarah stepped into the room, her eyes shimmering with tears and gratitude. The girls peeked around her with bright, innocent faces, still clinging to the moment of safety they had reclaimed. "You did it," she breathed, her voice laced with disbelief and wonder. Jake stepped forward, wrapping her and the girls in his strong arms. "We did it. We faced the storm." As laughter filled the room, a new understanding forged between them, all a family born from love and resilience. Together, they faced the future, hands tightly entwined, setting out on a journey of healing and hope. This was their moment, the realization that they were safe, together. It wasn't just the end of a battle. It was the beginning of something new. The shadows would no longer rule their lives. They were ready for the dawn ahead. But remember, this isn't just a story, it's a call to action. You need to subscribe now to catch more inspiring journeys like this one. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't wait not even one more second to share this tale with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. Comment below and tell us your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us keep building this community together.